Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap Reviews. My name is Ash and it's my job here to give you a review of a recently released movie from the perspective of a middle-aged British guy. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today, because not an hour ago I sat in the movie watching 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Now of course, as the title suggests, this is a movie which is a sequel from 28 Years Later, which came out last year, and this movie is a direct continuation from that storyline. I didn't really love 28 Years Later. Yes, it was an update from the 28 Days Later movie, which came out years and years ago. And yeah, whilst it was an adequate update to that, I can't say I was transfixed by that movie. So I didn't have high hopes for this movie, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I thought, how good can it be? Wow, what a mistake. This was a heck of a film. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it was one of the most disturbing horror movies that I have seen in quite some time. And there were some great portrayals of evil. There were some great portrayals of decency, goodness, very good acting by all individuals concerned. So I really found this one a movie which was shocking, because there were times when the portrayal of gory violence on screen made even me, a guy who, I'm not lily-livered, you know, I spent a lot of time in the law enforcement world. I've seen some sights that you wouldn't want to see. And actually, I had to look away from the screen a few times during this one, because it was just so gory and horrific. However, let me tell you what the story is all about without giving away all of the secrets. Obviously, you want to go and see this yourself. So essentially, as I say, it's a follow-on from 28 Years Later. And the young lad, the character from that previous film called Spike, who we saw at the end of the last film being rescued by an odd group of people dressed in a strange way, well, we find him now having to participate in a fight to the death with this group in order to either become a member of the group or actually find himself being killed in a ritualistic way. And by chance, by accident more than anything, he happens to be successful in this fight, this sort of gladiatorial fight that he's involved with, and he becomes sort of drawn into this group. Now, the group itself, this is one half of the story of this movie, because they're a weird old group, right? They're led by the actor Jack O'Connell, who portrays this bizarre character called Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. Now, if you're a British person, you're going to know immediately that this character is framed on a very much discredited television personality called Jimmy Savile, who died some years ago, long time ago now, but he was an infamous sexual predator on younger people, I think people of all ages. But he's become a sort of national villain here in the UK. And these guys, this group that young Spike has got involved with, led by this Jimmy Crystal character, played by Jack O'Connell, who, by the way, dominates this movie, really doing a great job portraying evil, unpleasantness, and just an utterly loathsome character as the head of this cult, basically, because he has created this cult. They are Satanists, right? They believe that Jimmy O'Connell is the son of old Nick, the devil himself, and he forces them to follow him as his sort of disciples, all dressing in the same way as him. They all wear a sort of blonde mullet, which was the symbolic look of Jimmy Savile, sort of training clothes, tracksuits. They all call each other Jimmy, and it's all really, you know, they've been indoctrinated into this cult, and he rules them with a rod of iron through fear, and this sort of perception of him being the son of God, through a sort of religious fanaticism. And he insists on fanaticism. And much of the film is us following them on their journey through society. You know, they will come across other survivors from the plague, you know, the infected zombies who are running around the country still. There are still some normal human survivors who have clustered together to survive. And this sort of group of weird disciples will come across groups, and they believe doing the Lord's work. They will capture them and they will torture them. And there is one scene in particular where they gather together a group of people and they torture them over a protracted period of time in a barn. And let me tell you, that's where I had to look away from the screen. You know, it was literally gory and horrific, and very much part of the story as it unfolds. We are left with no misunderstanding that the Jimmy Crystal character is evil personified, and his group of characters, his disciples, follow him and do his bidding whatever he says, because they're just so fearful of him that they have no option. Now, running alongside that story, we have another story where another character from the previous film, Dr. Ian Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes, or Rafe Fiennes, or Fiennes, complicated man, can't just say his name in a simple way. Rafe Fiennes, I think most people will agree on. So Rafe plays this doctor. We met him in the last movie, and he is continuing in his mission to perhaps try and understand more about the infection. He's still living in this bizarre ossuary, which is a bone temple basically. As he encounters the dead, he reduces their remains to bones, and he creates this ossuary of bones, this sort of, bones tied around trees and a great mound of skulls. It's macabre in the extreme, but he is the personification of good in the endeavour. Now, Ian Kelson, since we last met him, he's been continuing with his experiments, and he's been drugging one of the alpha males, so one of these huge muscular males from the infected group which live near where he does. He's been drugging him with morphine and kind of learning more, trying to work out whether the infection is something which has totally corrupted the brains of these people, or whether it has only clouded their brains, and whether some sort of a recovery would be possible. And he does this by experimenting basically on this other character. There's some really eccentric scenes where he drugs this mortal enemy, one would imagine. This character, this alpha male infected member, is shown capturing humans who are hunting nearby and literally tearing their heads off. As I say, the gore in this is not held back. I wouldn't say this is a date film. It's definitely not a film to watch if you're squeamish. It is a proper 18 certificate, and rightly so. But our infected male, once he's been drugged, he takes on a much more pacified outlook. And as I say, there's bizarre scenes where Ian Kelson dances with him when in his drugged state, and I love it because they use a lot of Duran Duran soundtrack to the back of all this, and I'm a huge fan of Duran Duran, and it is really somewhat bizarre yet uplifting at the same time, because we see this man continuing in his life mission to try and sort things out. Now, these two storylines converge, and this is where it really gets somewhat awful, terrible, and this group of disciples led by this character encounter Dr. Ian Kelson, and there is, well, I'm not going to give the story away. It obviously flares up, a lot takes place, a lot of people die in horrific ways, and certainly it brings to the conclusion the film where you are left with the understanding that there's still a long way to go in the narrative of what's happening in this world. We see most certainly that Dr. Kelson's endeavours to identify whether the infected can be saved or not. There are green shoots of hope on that path, and the story continues. And Spike, our young lad character, continues off at the end, and surely we know that there will be a sequel to this, because at the very end, and I'm not going to give it away, there is a little Easter egg, a little bit of treasure to find with a previous character from an older movie coming back, and really sets the scene for what likely will come next. I would say Ralph Fiennes is a superb actor. He's a great British theatre actor, movie actor. He's in excellent physical condition. He often appears in this movie stripped off. In fact, totally nude in a few scenes. And he's in amazing physical condition. He obviously put himself in great shape to appear in this movie. And with the resonance of his voice, his calming demeanour, I found him rather a hypnotic figure, particularly in his interactions with the infected, and then later with this other tribe of weirdos who descend upon his camp. Yes, so as I say, a lot going on, a lot to look forward to. It was a surprise to me. I didn't expect to like this movie as much as I did. I'm going to grade this as a solid 4 bowler hats out of 5. A solid 4 out of 5. You know, really good, enjoyable one. But certainly not one you want to go and see with your mother or your grandmother or another relative who's got a dicky ticker. Because there's a lot going on in here which will make you jump. There's a lot going on here where the horror is apparent. And it is the horror not necessarily in this one from the infected. They actually play only a periphery role in this movie. It's not a zombie movie. The horror in this film comes from the darkness in the hearts of the humans. And we will see how that goes on to be explored in the next film, which I'm now excited to see. I have to say, I wasn't particularly enamored with the idea of watching this one, but having seen this one, it's lit a spark. I want to see where this narrative goes, where we go next. Great acting, Jack O'Connell. Obviously, we've seen him playing Paddy Mayne in the BBC adaptation of the SAS series. Good actor, really nails villainy and evil, hello Indy, in this movie. And it is one, you know, he perhaps steals the show. Alongside anybody other than Ralph Fiennes, you know, he would have dominated, but Ralph Fiennes is just such a class act. It's hard not to just enjoy every minute that he is on the screen. So there we go. I enjoyed it. I think if you've got the stomach for it, you might enjoy it too. So until the next time we meet, my dear friends, from me in Indiana, take care, and I'll see you soon.